In late 2024, China's Ministry of Natural Resources unilaterally declared new maritime baselines around Panatag Shoal, Scarborough Shoal to the world, Huangyan-dao to Beijing. By connecting 7 base points with straight lines, China enclosed the entire feature, defying international law, which requires baselines to follow the natural low water mark. This move is a calculated escalation, turning abstract claims into concrete lines backed by Chinese state power. For the Philippines, the implications are direct and alarming. Panatag Shoal sits just 124 nautical miles from Zambales, well within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. China's action is seen as a direct infringement on Philippine sovereign rights, not just a distant dispute. The stage is set for a new, more intense phase of confrontation in the South China Sea. For generations, Panatag Shoal, also known as Scarborough Shoal, has been a lifeline for coastal communities in the Philippines, China, and Vietnam. Fishermen from these nations have relied on its rich waters for their daily catch, passing down stories of the shoal's bounty through the years. It was once a place where national boundaries blurred, and the sea's resources were shared, not fiercely guarded. The shoal's reefs and abundant marine life have supported families, shaped local cultures, and fostered a sense of shared stewardship among those who depended on its waters. But, in 2012, everything changed. A tense standoff between Philippine and Chinese vessels marked a turning point, as China asserted de facto control over the shoal. Filipino fishermen, who had long considered these waters their own, suddenly found themselves blocked and harassed, unable to access their traditional fishing grounds. The incident not only disrupted livelihoods but also ignited a wave of national pride and resentment, fueling diplomatic protests and international concern. The shoal's location is no accident of geography. It sits near vital shipping lanes and just over 100 nautical miles from the Philippine mainland. Its proximity to major trade routes and its potential as a military outpost have made it a strategic prize, intensifying the competition for control. The fear of further militarization looms large, as regional powers watch closely, wary of any escalation that could threaten peace and stability. For the Philippines, Panatag Shoal is more than just a fishing ground. It is a symbol of heritage, sovereignty, and survival. Generations of Filipino fishermen have depended on its waters, and its loss is felt deeply in coastal communities. For China, the shoal is a critical node in its broader strategy to project power and secure its maritime interests in the South China Sea, a region it considers vital to its national security and economic ambitions. Today, Panatag Shoal stands at the crossroads of history and law. It is a powerful symbol of the ongoing clash between centuries-old fishing traditions and the modern framework of international maritime law. The dispute has drawn in legal experts, diplomats, and world leaders, all seeking a resolution that balances historical rights with the rule of law. The fate of Panatag Shoal is now a flashpoint where the daily struggles of local fishermen intersect with the ambitions of global powers. Every negotiation, every confrontation, carries weight, not just for those who fish its waters but for the entire region and beyond. What happens here matters. Any miscalculation or escalation could send shockwaves far beyond these contested waters, shaping the future of maritime boundaries, regional security, and the lives of countless people who depend on the sea. The 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, defines maritime rights and zones. The Philippines, a signatory, bases its claim on Panatag Shoal being within its 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone. In 2016, an international tribunal ruled overwhelmingly in Manila's favor, invalidating China's historic rights and confirming the shoal is only entitled to a 12 nautical mile territorial sea. The tribunal also recognized Panatag as a traditional fishing ground for all, and found China had unlawfully restricted Filipino fishermen. China rejected the ruling, dismissing it as waste paper, and continuing its activities as if nothing had changed. The new baselines are a direct challenge to the tribunal's findings, deepening the legal and diplomatic rift. The conflict now pits international law against China's expanding ambitions. President Marcos Jr. has fundamentally shifted the Philippine approach to the West Philippine Sea dispute, moving away from years of quiet, behind-the-scenes diplomacy to a bold and assertive strategy rooted in transparency and the rule of law. This marks a significant departure from previous administrations, signaling a new era in the country's foreign policy. the government now actively documents and publicizes Chinese activities in the West Philippine Sea. Through regular press briefings, real-time social media updates, and by embedding journalists aboard patrol vessels, the Philippines exposes acts of coercion and intimidation that might otherwise go unnoticed. This transparency not only informs the public, but also puts international pressure on China by making its actions visible to the world. Manila has anchored its position in the landmark 2016 Arbitral Award, which invalidated China's sweeping claims. The government has filed dozens of diplomatic protests and is even considering launching new legal cases to further assert its rights. These legal efforts reinforce the Philippines' commitment to international law and set a precedent for other nations facing similar challenges. On the water, the Philippine Coast Guard has stepped up its presence, conducting more frequent patrols, directly escorting Filipino fishermen to ensure their safety, and physically removing Chinese-installed barriers that block access to traditional fishing grounds. These actions demonstrate the government's resolve to protect its citizens and assert its sovereignty, even in the face of significant risks and potential confrontation. At the same time, the Philippines is investing heavily in modernizing its military. With a $35 billion 10-year plan, the country is acquiring advanced defense systems, such as the BrahMos missile, to strengthen its deterrence capabilities. This modernization aims to better equip the armed forces to respond to threats and safeguard national interests. While the Philippines cannot match China's military might, its multi-pronged approach, combining transparency, legal action, and military deterrence, raises the costs of Chinese aggression. By making every incident public and standing firm on legal principles, Manila is forcing Beijing to reconsider its tactics. The message is clear: the Philippines will not passively surrender its maritime rights or allow its sovereignty to be eroded. Instead, it is taking proactive steps to defend its interests and those of its people. This comprehensive strategy is not only reshaping the regional narrative, but also rallying international support. By standing up for the rule of law and transparency, the Philippines is inspiring other nations and strengthening alliances in the region. The world's response to China's new baselines has been mixed. Western democracies, Australia, Japan, the UK, France, Germany, have backed the Philippines, citing UNCLOS and the 2016 ruling. ASEAN, however, remains divided, with consensus elusive and statements often limited to calls for restraint and a long-stalled code of conduct. Many global South nations stay neutral, wary of antagonizing China and prioritizing economic ties. Middle powers like Australia and Japan have gone further, conducting freedom of navigation operations and providing security assistance to Manila. India's supply of BrahMos missiles signals a growing Indo-Pacific security network. In the absence of a unified global front, smaller coalitions are stepping up to uphold regional order. The U.S.-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty, signed in 1951, is the backbone of Manila's security architecture, forming the foundation of a decades-long partnership. This treaty not only commits both nations to mutual defense in the event of an armed attack, but also symbolizes the enduring trust and cooperation between the two countries. Washington has repeatedly affirmed its unwavering commitment to defend Philippine vessels and personnel in the South China Sea, a region fraught with tension and competing territorial claims. Over the years, the alliance has deepened significantly. The U.S. now enjoys access to 9 strategically located Philippine bases, enhancing its ability to respond rapidly to regional crises and support humanitarian missions. In 2024, the U.S. deployed advanced missile systems to the archipelago, marking a significant upgrade in the region's defensive capabilities and sending a clear message to potential adversaries. These moves provide tangible deterrence, signaling to Beijing and others that any act of aggression will not go unanswered and carries substantial risks. Yet, U.S. policy in the region can shift with the tides of domestic politics. Changes in leadership or priorities in Washington can influence the level of engagement and support. Occasional pauses in freedom of navigation operations, which are meant to challenge excessive maritime claims, have sometimes raised eyebrows among allies. Diplomatic overtures to China, while necessary for global stability, have also led to questions about the reliability and resolve of U.S. commitments in Asia. In response, a new squad bloc has emerged, comprising the Philippines, Japan, Australia, and the United States, now coordinating security efforts more closely than ever before, sharing intelligence, conducting joint exercises, and aligning strategic objectives. Together, they are building a latticework of deterrence, creating a network of partnerships that strengthens regional security and stability. The U.S. is actively weaving together these alliances, fostering interoperability and trust among partners, to present a united front against any attempts to unilaterally alter the status quo in the region. The stakes are high: the credibility of U.S. commitments, the confidence of its allies, and the future of the regional order all hang in the balance. As nations weigh their options in an increasingly complex security environment, the region watches not just for displays of strength, but for consistency, clarity, and the assurance that alliances will endure through uncertainty. Since late 2023, the West Philippine Sea has seen a surge in dangerous incidents. China's tactics have escalated from shadowing to ramming, water cannons, and even boarding Philippine vessels, injuring sailors and seizing equipment. The June 2024 boarding at Second Thomas Shoal marked a new level of confrontation, just short of open conflict. The airspace is also contested. Chinese helicopters have buzzed Philippine teams, coming within meters of disaster. China's largest Coast Guard ship now looms in Philippine waters, a constant symbol of pressure. Each incident, documented by Manila, adds to a growing record of coercion and keeps the region on edge. The risk of miscalculation and escalation has never been higher. China's strategy is more than muscle, it's lawfare. By declaring domestic laws and baselines, Beijing claims a veneer of legality for its actions, framing them as law enforcement rather than aggression. China's legal reports attack U.S. freedom of navigation operations and accuse Washington of hypocrisy for not ratifying UNCLOS. Diplomatically, China mixes threats with inducements, warning Manila against provocations and trying to sow doubt about U.S. support. Meanwhile, Beijing champions endless code of conduct talks with ASEAN, projecting reasonableness while changing facts on the water. This talk-and-take approach buys time, divides regional opinion, and normalizes China's presence. Lawfare and diplomacy work hand in hand to entrench China's claims. The South China Sea stands at a crossroads. One scenario, a miscalculation sparks a clash, potentially drawing in the U.S. and triggering a wider conflict. Another, China's gray zone tactics succeed, eroding Philippine control and setting a precedent for coercion over law. A third, more hopeful path, genuine diplomacy, resource sharing, and a binding code of conduct to manage disputes and prevent escalation. The outcome will test whether international law can withstand great power ambition. The Philippines, backed by allies, is making a stand for rules and sovereignty. The coming years will reveal if this coalition can steer the region towards stability, or if confrontation will define the future.